Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. I see we have some attendees filing in. Welcome. We'll give it a few minutes. Hope you all are well on this Saturday morning, and it's a beautiful morning wherever you are in this country. So far, we have 36 attendees. I think my favorite aspect of these webinars is seeing how many people are filing in. I don't know why it's exciting. Normally, I would be outside our main campus building greeting you. All right, and you're going to hear my dog in the background, apparently having a coughing little fit right now. Her name is Tank. She's a Pomeranian, so she may make an appearance. All right, so I am going to get started. I just wanted to let you know that this session will be recorded and posted to our website. Good morning. I am Katie Merrill. I am the Director of Admissions, and welcome to our open house. I'm joined by my admissions colleagues, Shirley Crawford, Simon Wilbanks, Kelly Burkett, Genevieve Nichols, and Veronica Schlurf. Wanted to let you know that Vermont Law is a small independent law school nestled in the Green Mountains. We are committed to public interest law and developing a generation of leaders dedicated to making a difference in their communities. We are a national law school, and what that means is 95% of our students come from out of state, and then they practice across the country. I'm a Utah girl, so I don't know if you all and my attendees who have joined, if you could put in the chat where you're from. I know, hi, Daniel. Daniel actually is an LLM, and Daniel, I can't remember where you're from. Oh, we have someone from Minnesota, Stephanie Wilbanks, one of our professors, Alaska, Nebraska, Seattle, Atlanta, Boston, New York City, New Mexico, India. You guys sound like our student body. Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, New Jersey. Oh, we love New Jersey. Boston, Texas. I think New York, Pennsylvania, great state. You guys have fracking and your water, and Dean Brennan's from there. California. Oh, and our Vermonters. Yes, we cannot forget our Vermont natives. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and run through the program tonight. All right. Today we'll be hearing from Interim President and Dean Beth McCormick, as well as Vice Dean of Students Joe Brennan. Professor Clark will be highlighting the first restorative justice law program in the country. And Associate Director of our Environmental Law Center, Ann Linehan, will be giving a broad overview of our extensive nationally known environmental law program. We'll be also hearing from the most important people on this panel, Fido Andre, our student trustee, and actually my boss, he's a trustee, Robert Baker, and April Urbanowski. So typically you'd be joining us on our beautiful campus. This is our quad, and there's been known to have several wiffle ball games on our quad. And you'd be joining us for breakfast, walking around, kind of getting a feel of Vermont. And I'm going to launch a poll because we are big on food, and I'm launching a breakfast poll. So I wanted to kind of see what type of breakfast food you're interested in. I can give you a hint that Ann Linehan, she joins us for open houses because she's a waffle person. Also wanted to tell you, I'm going to see how I fare on my breakfast of choice this morning. Wow, Cheerios. I'm a Cheerio girl. So that was my breakfast of choice. It's my comfort food. No matter how many webinars I do, I get a little nervous. So I always do a Superman pose, grab a little bowl of Cheerios, and start my day. So it looks like we're going to end the polling. Okay, I'm going to share results. All right, let's see what the winner, does it say? Can you all see the results? Oh, coffee. Oh my gosh. So coffee's the clear winner this morning. I also have my coffee too. All right. All right. Now, before we get started, I have one more poll. Hold on here. I just want to see what you all are interested. Let's see. I'm going to start the second one. Stop share results. Close. Polls. Okay. All right. All right. So here's our next poll. I want to know what you're interested in. Oh, wow. So far, traditional JD, accelerated JD, master's environmental law and policy. Wow. It's kind of, our Marge, master's arts, restorative justice. Let's see, my Mafalps. All right. Give it a few more minutes. You can still hear a tank. Of course, this happens right when you start a webinar. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end polling. I'm going to share results. All right, so we have a number of traditional JDs in our 3-year program and accelerated JDs, reduced residency, our master's environmental law and policy. And it's interesting, it's kind of similar to the dynamic of our student population. You have a mix of all these programs on campus. Okay. All right, so we're going to begin our programming. Q&A will be after each sections, and so we're going to start. Don't be shy to ask away, but please do use the main Q&A for questions. And I also have my admission teams member who can answer general admissions questions. And for those of you who'd like to stay on after the webinar, we can talk more about the admissions process. So we're going to get started. I'm going to go ahead and introduce. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to introduce our interim president and dean, Dean McCormick. Dean McCormick, if you want to get started, and I'll go ahead and share our screen.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Vermont Law School. I wish that we could be on campus today welcoming you in person and not virtually, but I am happy to see you virtually. And I want to just give a brief introduction to the law school, tell you a little bit about myself and my history with Vermont Law School, and then I'm ready and willing to answer any questions that you might have about the school. So I have to say that it's been about a year, as it has for everyone else, since we were all last on campus together. And but yesterday, for the first time in a year, I was on campus teaching live to real students, real live students, as opposed to teaching virtually. And it was such a thrill. Yes, we taught in masks. Yes, we were socially distanced. Yes, all of that. But it was so wonderful to just be in a classroom again, speaking with students live. And I wanted to tell you that it really made me so invigorated for the upcoming fall semester, which I believe we will be back to normal operations or close to normal operations. And it made me just remember how much I love our beautiful campus and how I love being in the same room with students. So yesterday we did some sessions for our master's students to introduce our master's students to, my session was about 5 tips for professional writing. So I wanted to first start and tell you a little bit about myself and what has led me to be the interim president and dean of Vermont Law School. I've been on this job as interim president and dean for about 2 months so far, but my history with Vermont Law School is much, much longer. I've been at the school for about a decade. I have taught legal writing and appellate advocacy and advanced appellate advocacy. I've served as the assistant director of our legal writing program, and I've served as the assistant director of our academic success program. And for the last 5 years, I've been in the administration as the vice dean for students. So I applied for this job when it became available because I love Vermont Law School. I love its students. I love alumni. I love seeing what our alumni do in the world and in their careers. And that's what really led me to apply. And I was really honored to be chosen a few months ago as the first woman president and dean of the law school. And I hope the first of many to lead this school. Prior to joining the faculty at Vermont Law School, I practiced law in Boston. And I was a litigator at a firm, Mintz Levin, which is a law firm in Boston, and I practiced there for about 10 years. And I think you'll find that a lot of our faculty have careers practicing law before they joined academia, which is one thing that I think makes our law school unique. I attended law school at Boston University School of Law. And although I loved being a law student and I loved attending law school, I see every day the differences between BU and Vermont Law School. I was speaking with one of our trustees yesterday, and she described it as a very humane approach to teaching law. She's an alum as well. And I thought that was an interesting description of the law school. And I would go even further and say it's not only humane, it is the most supportive place you'll probably ever be able to attend. Not only do the people that work at the law school, the staff, the faculty, and your fellow students root for you and want you to succeed, but you'll find that even in our South Royalton community, that the people that work at the restaurants and the stores are so supportive, and it's that community-based approach to living in Vermont that I think makes it such a pleasure to attend the law school. This last year has been far from normal, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about how the school has been managing that. So about a year ago, like every other law school, we closed for in-person education, and we formed a task force to help respond to the COVID crisis. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about that. I began chairing that task force and really developed expertise in virology and community health and epidemiology by that service. But we named our task force OVAT, and that was called the One VLS Action Team, so OVAT. And I love that name because I think it's a really, it's a symbol of how we are at Vermont Law School. We are one VLS. So we are more than just a JD school. We are a school that also educates master's programs. We're more than just an environmental school. I know you'll hear from Ann Linehan shortly, and she'll tell us about all of the offerings that we have in environmental law, but we're more than that. So you can come here if you're not interested in environmental law as well. We have a major expertise in restorative justice. Katie told you we're one of the only law school that offers such a program. You'll hear from Stephanie Clark later more about that program. But you can also just come here if you want to just get a really solid, strong core JD education or a master's education. So we are one VLS. We are more than any one thing, and we are all of these things together. One of the reasons that we've been so successful with our virtual learning in the last year is because we have always had a strength in online learning. So we were able to quickly transition to virtual classes. And I know you'll hear from some of our students today, and they'll tell you about how that's been going, but I do anticipate having full operations returned, hopefully in the fall semester, barring something unusual, and then possibly a hybrid situation in the summer. And we're going to be making a decision about that next week. So by next week, we'll have a final decision about what the summer is going to look like. What we've been doing this spring semester is we've had our spring semester hybrid, where we've had about 50 students on campus taking classes live and everyone else taking their classes virtually. So we've had a hybrid situation, which I anticipate will be what we will have this summer if we're able to have any operations on person. And then again, hopefully a full normal return in the fall semester. So I'm really excited to be in this position. I'm excited to welcome our first the new class with me as interim president and dean in the fall. And now I want to open it up, and you can ask me anything, and I will do my best to answer any questions that you might have about the school, our programs, and its operations, knowing though that you're going to be hearing from Professor or Vice Dean Brennan. You're going to be hearing from our restorative justice leaders and our environmental programs leaders and some students later in the program.
Thank you, Dean McCormick. There's a great question that came, and I thought you could tackle it. Any tips for stress management? Law school can be intimidating, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm glad that you asked it, because one thing that Vermont Law School really cares about is mental health. As you probably know, the legal profession isn't great in terms of promoting mental health. And so we really want to change that here at Vermont Law School. So a few years ago, we developed a new position at the school. It's our mental health services manager. So we have a person at the school who's in charge of connecting students with mental health resources. All of our students have access to free counseling through a partnership that we have with a local counseling center. And we've been able to do that even when it's virtual. We also have lots of programming on campus geared towards protecting students' mental health, strengthening students' mental health, and really eliminating the stigma behind seeking support for mental health. We have a weekly group called SWAN Support, where it's student run. It's a confidential support group that meets. And if you want to be a part of that, you have to sign a confidentiality agreement. But then you meet with other students and the sessions are typically themed around what's going on during the semester. So when it's close to oral argument time, there'll be a session about that. During finals exam time, there's a session about managing exam stress and so forth. So we have a lot of support for you here on campus. We very much consider mental health and protecting the mental health of our students an absolute priority. And I think that our campus in Vermont also provides lots of opportunities for students to do things outside of studying. So we want that to be your main priority, but there's many opportunities for hiking and being outside, walking around our beautiful campus, et cetera. So those are my tips, is to take advantage of the resources that Vermont Law School offers.
Thank you, Dean McCormick. Can you touch a little bit on the success after law school, careers, bar passage, etc.?
I sure can. So we have, I'm gonna address jobs first, and then I'm gonna get back to bar passage. So we have very good job numbers that I'm impressed with about, and I'm going to talk about JD first, and then I'll talk about master's students. So our students tend to work in any career that you can imagine that involves the law. So we place a number of students, actually it increases every year, a number of students in legal clerkship positions. We have students that are in private practice, some in larger firms, some in small town firms or smaller sort of boutique type firms. We have a lot of students that work in nonprofits. Just about every environmental nonprofit you can imagine, we have an alum that has worked there or works there now. We have students working for the government. I think we have more students working at the EPA than any other law school. So it's really a mix. There's no one particular career path for our alumni. They really run the gamut of private practice, government, and nonprofit careers. We do have a very dedicated and devoted career services department run by an alum. And I think most students would say that they're very supportive in meeting with students from the day that they get on campus all the way through graduation and even after graduation, helping them get that first job and continuing to assist them even after they've graduated. Our master's students have similarly varied positions. A lot of them in governments, a lot of them in nonprofits, a lot of them in think tanks and things like that. And I'm sure that Anne and Stephanie Clark can talk to you a little bit more about the specific positions that their restorative justice and environmental master's grads have secured. I want to talk a little bit about bar passage, and you'll hear more about this, I suspect, from Vice Dean Joe Brennan. But bar passage is something that Vermont Law School is extremely committed to. We did see a decrease in bar passage a few years ago, which was very distressing to us and somewhat surprising, because we had implemented a number of measures to increase and improve bar passage. So since that happened, we've really devoted ourselves to it. And we have two really exciting programs that I'm so proud of us for implementing. I think we're one of the few law schools in the country that have a program like this. One of the programs is called FEB. It's our February Early Bar Program. And then the other one is JEB. It's our July Education for the Bar Program. So as I'm sure you know, the bar is offered 2 times a year in February and July. Normally, it's been a mess this last year with the bar. It's been in October and September instead of July and February, but that's how it's normally offered. So what we learned when we started to really do a deep dive into why our students weren't successful a few years ago was that a number of students reported feelings of isolation from their bar preparation, and a number of students had to work full-time in order to support themselves during bar preparation. And that's really not consistent with a successful path. We estimate it takes about 600 hours of concentrated study to be successful on the bar exam. So we implemented these programs where students could prepare for the bar and earn credits for it, the February bar. And so this worked great for our fall start, or for our HAD students. And it really capitalized on the fact that Vermont's is the only state, there's one other state that has a similar program, that allows you to take the bar after 5 semesters. So in this program, you would take bar preparation classes taught largely by your own VLS professors and earn credit for it. So it really took care of that feeling of isolation. It gave students a feeling of accountability by having, for example, me for civil procedure and Professor Brennan for contracts while they prepared for the bar. And it also took care of the need to work, because students were still in school and then still having access to federal financial aid funds for living expenses. So we were really excited about that program. We implemented it. Our early indicators have been that it's very successful, and it's something that we're going to continue to offer in subsequent years. And so that's a program that you should definitely look into if you're interested in becoming a JD here.
Thank you, Dean McCormick. I have a question from Carlin. How does VLS engage with Give Back to South Royalton and other local communities?
So we're very engaged with the South Royalton and surrounding areas community. We host a number of events on campus that are open to the public, and they've been all virtual for the last year. And I know that you can take a look at our website and see some recordings of these live stream events from the past. But when we're in person, we have those events on campus, and we invite our community members to come and attend. So they can be our law review symposia, for example, various other conferences. This last year, we've done a monthly series on embedded racism in the law that's been open to the public. So we really try to offer our programming and our education here to the community whenever we can. There are smaller ways too that we engage with the community. There's a daycare center right here on campus, the Magic Mountain Daycare. One of my favorite days of the year is Halloween, when the kids from the daycare center get dressed up in their Halloween costumes and trick or treat throughout the law school. We invite many of our local schools in for various events, our Martin Luther King events. We always invite the local schools to attend. The local elementary school always comes and performs the Lorax for the students in the spring. So there's lots of things like that. We try to engage with the community, and then unofficially, many of our students engage with the community in other ways as well, through working at the schools. We have something called the Schweitzer Fellowship Program that helps students get involved in the community. We also have many of our students that work in Burlington or in Montpelier in externships or internships. The Judicial Center of the state is in Montpelier. So we always have students that are interning at the Vermont Supreme Court or in other government agencies in Montpelier and in Burlington.
Thank you. I have a question from Rebecca. Beyond offering the restorative justice program, which sounds awesome, can you share some other efforts VLS is taking to address systems of oppression?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's one that's been very much on our mind. So one of the ways that we've been doing that is through our education. And I really encourage you to check out some of our embedded racism in the law panels that we've offered over the last year. Those, again, have been virtual, but we are hoping to continue those live once we get back on campus. So we've really done that through education and discussion, inviting not only our own community, but wider communities to come and discuss systemic racism in the law and the different parts of the law. One session focused on systemic racism in property law, and then other areas of law as well. So that's one of the ways that we've been doing it. We also have an active diversity committee on campus that's composed of faculty, students, and staff. And that committee really works hard to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support diversity and inclusion here on campus. Most recently, they developed an anti-racism and inclusion statement, Vermont's commitment, which was recently unanimously passed by the staff and then also approved by the faculty. And you'll be seeing that statement on our website soon. That statement comes with it, a fully fledged diversity plan that includes a number of action items and progress measurements for the school to work on and live up to. We really very much are committed to diversity and inclusion, and we really want to be the school that says that and then lives up to that promise, and not to just state goals. So one of the main goals that we have is to improve the diversity of our faculty and staff. And that's one that I'm absolutely committed to during my term as interim president and dean, as one way that we can live up to the commitments in our diversity and inclusion plan.
Thank you, Dean McCormick. Now, are there any last questions for Dean McCormick? See if any pop up. Oh, for the VLS offered bar prep courses that you described earlier, is this just for Vermont bar exam or the UBE more broadly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Vermont is the only state that allows you to take that bar exam after completing 5 semesters. Most states require you to have gotten your JD before you can take part in that program. But Vermont is a UBE state. So if you met Vermont's requirements, you could take that and then transfer your score to another UBE jurisdiction. But we also have that program that's offered in the summer. In the summer, it's not for credit because you'll have graduated, but it's the same system of accountability and learning from your actual VLS professors. And in most cases, we offer a stipend based on financial need for students to live on, so that they don't have to work while they prepare for it. And that's the JEB course that I mentioned earlier, and that one can work for any UBE state. These programs don't work for non-UBE states, although, as you probably know, most states by now are UBE, and the trend seems to be going that way. So more and more, it's even just from a few years ago, we have more UBE jurisdictions than ever before. Some states, most notably California, I saw a number of California students on the list today, are not UBE. So this wouldn't be a program that would work for students interested in taking California.
Thank you. All right, Dean McCormick, tell us a little bit about you and your favorite thing to do in the winter.
Okay. So I switched offices. I'm usually in my upstairs office, but I'm downstairs because I needed a little bit of a change of scenery. But if I were in my upstairs office, you would see that one thing that I live and die with the Boston Red Sox. And so that is something that I am passionate about. And our former president and dean was a Yankees fan. So I'm really bringing pride back to Vermont Law School, I think, by leadership that's focused on the Red Sox now. But other than that, I love the outdoors. So I love to ski. I'm going to be skiing leader today. I live near Sugarbush Resort, so I'm going to be going over to there. I love to ski at Mad River Glen too. I love to cross country ski. And I'm a new mountain biker, which it's a little bit of a dangerous hobby to take up at my age, but it's something that I just started a couple of years ago and I've really, really fallen in love with. So one of the benefits of living in this beautiful state is there's so much access to the outdoors. And it's something that I really enjoy, including less high adrenaline sports like hiking and things like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean McCormick. And I know now you are not the person calling snow days. I believe that will be Dean Brennan, who is, what do you say, up on deck? Is that a baseball terminology?
Not really, Katie, but but yeah, I want to. The interim vice dean Brennan, who you'll meet in just a second, is the former director of the academic success program. And I also wanted to tell you that he's been my longtime gala dance partner. So once you get to Vermont Law School, you'll see that we have this annual event called Gala every year. It's a drag show where faculty, staff, and students perform. And Professor Brennan and I have been dance partners for many years. So Professor Brennan, Vice Dean Brennan.
Hey, that's a hard intro to live up to. I'm interim, as Dean McCormick said, I'm interim vice dean for students, Joe Brennan, and I came into this position about 2 months ago. It is the position that Dean McCormick had formerly filled. But before that, for about 5+ years, I was the director of academic success. So both of these positions, a lot of interaction with students, which is really my favorite part of the day. So it's been fun transitioning into this and working with students in even different areas. Before I came to VLS, I also worked at a law firm and I clerked. Any of you who are JDs, I highly encourage clerking. It's a really great experience your first year out of law school. I know I clerked in an appellate court in New Jersey, and my first week, the New Jersey Supreme Court invited me back into their chambers and was asking me my opinion on a case. Of course, they didn't need me. They didn't need my opinion. They knew what to do, but it was so cool to be involved in that process. So if you do get a chance to clerk, I highly recommend it. I worked at a firm for about 5 years also. And in a prior life, between college and law school, I also taught K-8 and also in high school. So I really enjoy being able to kind of combine the teaching aspect and the law, which are the two areas that I have that I've worked with. And I have also found, as Dean McCormick said, Vermont Law School to be very supportive community. None of the horror stories you might have heard from other people about the cutthroat nature that some people might find at different law schools. And it's been a really great atmosphere to work in, and my experience with students has been very collaborative. So Dean McCormick gave you a overview of the broad structure of the school. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the curriculum, the academics, and for both the JD and the masters. We have Professor Clark coming up next, who will talk more in depth about the restorative justice offerings, and Ann Lenahan, who will go in depth into the environmental. So I'll just give a brief overview of those because they have a wealth of information to share with you on that. I know many of you may be coming here for our environmental program, many of us for your RJ program, or you could be like me and not know what you want to do with your law degree when you start. And that's totally fine. Or your master's degree, and kind of combining the different offerings. That's a great part with the JD curriculum. The 1L year, you get exposed to all of the foundational courses. You're going to have torts, which is negligence and civil wrongs, contracts, which I know are both Fido and Robert's favorite class, much more than Dean McCormick's civil procedure class they had. You will have civil procedure, you'll have criminal law, property, constitutional law, legal writing, which we have 3 semesters. Writing is such an important part of any job you have in policy or the law. It's not on TV where somebody files a case and then immediately people are bringing in video cameras and you're deposing somebody the next day. 90% of your work is done by the written word that you do, and it's so important to be able to convey your thoughts, ideas, arguments in that way. And because of that, we have 3 required semesters of legal writing. You have legal writing 1, legal writing 2, and then an appellate advocacy class where you really hone your writing and brief skills, and you have an opportunity to argue in front of local practitioners. We have had members of the Vermont Supreme Court serve as judges for it in an oral argument competition. And if you are interested in that, you could go on to additional offerings, advanced appellate advocacy, a whole host of moot court competitions. I believe this week our energy law moot court team is competing virtually in West Virginia. But they have competed in that. They've advanced to the next round. So we always have a good contingency going. That Dean McCormick coached our national moot court team this year, who advanced to the next round in New York City after doing the first round in Boston. So another nice thing about VLS, the professors are very accessible. They most have, when we're in person, an open door policy, and when we're virtually, an open Teams policy. They have office hours, time for you to meet, ice cream socials, different things that can help make sure that you are able to have those conversations, develop those relationships, not only to help you with the material, but also to have those discussions about what you want to do with your career and serve as a reference. This week, I got a couple emails from past students asking to be referenced, and I know them so well. I'm going to be able to write those letters to be very specific and very advocating for them. And I found that to be something that happens a lot at VLS. You're going to know your professors. They really do have an interest in making sure that um, that your career gets off how you want it to go. The 1L year is very set. As you go forward, there are lots of other opportunities too. Getting experience is so important when you get out there, because you're not going to have, it's not like being in classes, you're actually doing the work. And we have so many great opportunities for that. Our clinics is part of our experiential learning, but also we have a program, the externship program or the semester in practice program, where you could spend an entire semester. I was just looking at the whole list of where you all are in the chats. You might go back to that jurisdiction where you are right now, and you might work full time as part of a class and get credit for that and get experience actually working with a judge, working in a firm, working at the EPA, working in a courthouse. And that is just invaluable for getting that experience to hit that ground running when you start making contacts in your jurisdiction. As Dean McCormick said, we really are a national law school. I work with students deciding where to take the bar exam, and the uniform bar has really helped. About 85 to 90% of our students do take an exam in a UBE jurisdiction. Katie mentioned that I grew up in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania just last month is one of the newest additions to the uniform bar. So happy to see that. They were the only big holdout in the Northeast until recently. So getting you that experience and getting you placed geographically where you want to be. Academic success is also a really important part. I used to be the director of academic success, and I currently still do work very closely with the academic success department. And that's support to help you get the most out of all of these offerings. We work very closely with the 1L students and the master's students when you first start to figure out how to attack and succeed in your program, how to study for your classes, how to outline what your papers and your exams are going to be looking at, the scheduling for law school or your new master's program that you're in. All of those things are what help you to succeed in addition to just knowing the substance of the material. Dean McCormick got into a bit too about the bar and academic success programs with that. FEB, JEB. We also have a course called BEST, which is bar exam skills and tactics, that about 75, it's not a required course, but about 75% of the JD students in their third year end up taking. And it's a 3-credit course that gives you a foundation for the, it's not a substitute for your bar prep course like FEB or JEB is, but it gives you a foundation for those courses. So you're jumping off at a higher testing point. Getting to know how these questions are constructed, how you're going to be tested, what the expectations are. So by the time you get to actual bar study, you're able to focus on the substance you need to know. Get those skills down and some foundational material early. Also talking about issues, the bar application process. Taking the exam is hard enough, but then they have this ridiculously long application process you have to do, and you might have questions with that. So having one-on-one meetings with students to navigate that process and make sure that you are set, ready to get it in and sit for the bar. So those are the foundations. Also kind of getting to a day in the life. This is me back when we were on campus in Oaks 208, and this is me in my bar exam skills and tactics class, and just really preparing to get ready. These are my 3Ls. In addition to these classes, though, there are other parts of the life too. So we have co-curriculars. There are journals that you have, the environmental law, Vermont Journal of Environmental Law and Vermont Law Review. We have several different clinics, as I mentioned before, Environmental Justice Clinic, the Environmental Advocacy Clinic, the South Royalton Legal Clinic, lots of different extracurricular groups. FIDO is a trustee of the Board of Trustees, as I believe Katie mentioned earlier. So that is an option. lots of different groups. I am the faculty advisor for two. I'm the faculty advisor for Balsa and Ultimate Justice, which is the ultimate Frisbee team. So it's a whole range of different activities. The most important thing when you come is to get the material down, get your classes, succeed, get good grades, get the experience. But there are also lots of different aspects of student and campus life that are important. And several different conferences, different symposium that come on and bring really great experts in fields to talk about problems of the day. And I've learned so much by going to those. And I think that April, Robert, and Fido will be talking a little bit more about the student experience. And I know they're all very active. They're all both in the classroom, of course, but also very active on campus in a lot of other activities and really great members of our community. So they'll speak a little bit more to that. So that's I could talk for hours about like all of the courses we have, but I won't bore you with that. And so I'll turn it over to any questions you have for me though.
Thank you, Dean Brennan. If you'd like to ask Dean Brennan a question, please go ahead and put it in the Q&A. I do have a question. What is the workload like for a master's student and a JD student? How many hours a week should they plan on scheduling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start with the master's student because I'm going to say a famous law school answer there. It depends how many credits you're taking. So the number of credits, obviously, that's part of the workload. So if you're taking 9 credits, say, that would be 9 hours of in-class time roughly per week. We recommend 2 to 3 hours of out-of-class time to prepare for every hour of in-class. So if you're taking 9 credits as a master's student, that's 9 hours plus maybe 27 hours, 18 to 27 hours, depending on the week of out-of-class time. For a JD student, if you are, I didn't see too many people say extended, but I will talk about that too. Most said the traditional or the AJD. And so your first semester would be 16 credits. So that's 16 hours. And then if we talk about 2 to 3 hours outside of the classroom, so that would be 32 to 48 hours outside of the classroom per week. Some weeks will be busier than others, and so you have to factor that in. But it's more than a full-time job, especially at the start where you're learning not only the new substantive material, but learning how to learn it. I'm sure all of the people on this call have come from different backgrounds, different areas of study, maybe different jobs. And just as you would with any of those, have different skill sets that you apply to do best. You have to learn those skill sets for the law because it's just a different area of practice.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have a bar question from Stefan. Is there any movement on expansion of uniform bar exam? Sorry, it all of a sudden moved. Genevieve, I don't know where the question went, but for California, I know New York is
Ooh.
UBE.
Yeah, California's tough. We're at about 40 states right now. Maybe just under 40, like 38 or 39 states are uniform bar. Some states that I thought were going to be not going that way have. Texas, for instance, has. Pennsylvania has. California is I think will be one of the later ones if they do. There's no current talk about California shifting. California did just shift their exam from being a 3-day exam to a 2-day exam. So I don't think anything in the very upcoming future of California. California and Florida are two big jurisdictions that that have been most resistant to adopting the UBE. There was recently a task force just a couple months ago that completed examining the bar exam and whether it's the best way to test competency to be an attorney. And a lot of suggestions came out of that. So maybe in the next 5 years or so, there will be more widespread overhauls of the bar in general, but I don't see anything near term about California administering the uniform bar exam.
Thank you. Dean Brennan, how many jurisdictions did we sit for? Well, last year's unique because of COVID, but typically, how many jurisdictions do Vermont Law School students sit for?
We're in the high 20s. Somewhere, it depends on the year, of course, and the UBE has made that number slightly lower. I think some years before that, we might have been over 30, because before the uniform bar, for those of you who don't know how the uniform bar works, is it's the exact same test, and so you can transfer your score around. Before that, if I wanted to be licensed in a jurisdiction, I actually had to go there and take it there. But 25 to 30 about will have some more than ours. Vermont and New York are typically our largest ones geographically. That makes sense. And also for students who don't know where they're going to be when the time the application process rolls around, they might end up taking New York or Vermont just because that's where they'll be studying and they'll have a transferable score. But we always have a handful going all over the country. And it's about 20, somewhere between 25 and 30 would be typical for a year.
Thank you. This is a good segue into our specialization portion of the program. Kristen asked, can you talk about the different specializations within the law program? I'm interested, which will touch on environmental law and restorative justice. But what is the process in specializing? Are there other specializations that you can talk about?
Yeah, so there are lots of opportunities to specialize. If you're somebody like me who, as I said before, I came to law school not knowing exactly what I wanted to do, it wasn't until I got into my courses that I decided. And so if you're a JD, because this was a JD program question, if you're a JD, your entire first year is set for you because they're all the foundation courses that you need to do the higher level courses. So you're going to get exposed to a lot of different areas in your first semester and your second semester. And about this time, about March of your second semester of the JD program is when you'll be looking at registering for your upper level classes. And there are some required courses that you have to take, but that's when you'll get a chance to specialize. And Professor Clark will be coming next talking about some of the very specifics with in environmental, or excuse me, with our restorative justice, and Ann Lenahan with the environmental. But you can also go in different areas. So you're able to pick your courses. If something like real estate law is something that's very interesting you can focus in estates. You could take some of our programs in the general practice program. If you're somebody who's very interested in writing, in publishing something, you'll have those journals that can be an option for you to apply to. If you're somebody who oral advocacy is something that's important, you do have the moot court competitions. If you're someone who's interested in litigation, we have both trial practice and intensive trial practice. So there are a whole host of different paths you can take. And maybe you know at the start some of those areas that you'd be interested in going into. Everybody will be assigned an academic advisor also who you'll meet with and discuss career plans and what you want to get out of your law degree. What are we have various different concentrations that are all listed in our the student handbook. So those are our specific areas that you can name a concentration and then get a that notation for it.
All right. Well, thank you, Dean Brennan. Similar question that I asked Dean McCormick. Favorite winter sport, or how are you liking calling snow days on campus?
Well, I do. I thought that was something. That's something I've wanted to be able to do since I was in grade school. You know, and I'd be sitting up watching the TV, looking for the name of my school, going across the bottom. I always wish that I had the power to call the snow day, but now I find that it entails me waking up at 5 in the morning and standing up in the yard and reading news reports. So, but yeah, I've called my first 2 snow days, so that has been fun. I'm hopeful we might be having a false spring here in Vermont, but I'm hopeful that maybe we're done with the snow days. And I do have to say that the the pressure of calling the snow day was lessened a bit by the fact that we are mostly virtual. So I wasn't impacting nearly as many people. So I feel it was a good test run for next winter. And I will be monitoring the weather reports coming in though for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dean Brennan. Now we are going to move into our specializations, and I'd like to introduce Professor Clark.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephanie Clark. I'm director of the National Center on Restorative Justice, also the Center for Justice Reform at Vermont Law School, both of them at Vermont Law School. I also teach in our Master of Arts in Restorative Justice program, and we also have a professional certificate program. And I'm going to talk about a number of those things a little bit later on, but I'm going to start, and I will just share in terms of my own background. I also clerked right out of law school, and then I also did general civil litigation. I had the pleasure of working as a magistrate in a general division state trial court in Ohio. And then I found my way into treatment courts and alternative criminal justice, and I've really never looked back. So I'm excited to be at Vermont Law School and to be involved in the restorative justice program. What I want to do, though, is because there's often questions about what is restorative justice. And so I'm going to start with a visualization exercise, and I'm going to invite you to participate using the chat. And so what I want you to do is first just visualize the criminal justice system in the United States. And I want you to think about whatever images or words just sort of pop into your mind. And when you've got those images relevant to the criminal justice system, just type them into the chat. And then we're going to share some of what those are and build them also into our slide. Broken, bias, courtroom, police, warrant, a revolving door, corrupt, dishonest, prison, school to prison pipeline, conveyor belt, unjust, racial and social oppression, corrections, elected officials, negotiations, anxious ridden, legal slavery, expensive, targeted people of color, painful, punitive, misaligned incentives, scales of justice, failed, violence, orange jumpsuits. So this paints quite a picture. So I just want to pause and think about these words and these descriptions and the picture that creates. And then what I want to do is I'm going to change now our visualization, and I'm going to take away a couple words, and I want you to think this time about just justice. So pure justice, true justice, only justice. And now I want you to put those words and images that pop into your mind. So truth, fairness, RBG, fairness, truth, helpful, transformative, freedom, reconciliation, equity, born right, dynamic, respect, empathy, equity, fair, colorblind, equality, truth, transformation, honesty, balance, personally, transaction, honor, humane, restorative, fair, accountable to both parties, equitable, understanding. So thank you for doing that. I want you to think now about this other vision that we've created about what justice is when we think about only justice. I invite this exercise because if you think about our criminal justice system, it should embody the justice that is in its own title. And yet it really doesn't, at least not in our common perceptions of what our criminal justice system represents. And I do this because I want to talk a little bit about, again, what restorative justice is. And restorative justice really is this broad umbrella, and it really invites ways of thinking that invite bringing justice back into our systems, and not just in that criminal justice system. So if you think about restorative justice, it's a broad umbrella. And if I had a room full of restorative justice practitioners and I asked all of them to please share your hallway definition of what restorative justice is, there would be as many definitions as there are people in the room. but there would be definite core principles or foundational principles that really represent what is restorative justice. So it's that we're all related, that we're connected through our humanity, and that we're better together in that collective than we are as individuals, that we have shared values, that we are inclusive, that we invite all voices, that we actually deconstruct power imbalance. And finally, that transformation is possible. So those are really foundational principles of restorative justice. But then often people say, okay, that's fine, but how does it work? How do you apply it? How do you do it? And when I answer that question, I say there's really two sides of restorative justice. There's sort of two different approaches. So one is that is people think of it more commonly in terms of how we respond to harm and conflict. And this you can think of really in the criminal justice system. And so this is anywhere along that continuum. There's all kinds of alternatives that we're building into the system. So if someone's arrested, they may have an opportunity for pretrial diversion. Maybe there's a reparative restorative panel. If we go further along that continuum, maybe there's a treatment court opportunity. There's also victim offender dialogue. There's family group conferences. And if we get all the way to the other end and someone's even been incarcerated, but they come out into reentry, they might have the opportunity to be in part of a COSA, which is a circle of support and accountability for people that are coming out after a significant time in prison. So there's lots of different ways. And really, restorative justice in that context looks at harm and conflict differently and says, how can we bring people together? And how can we invite them to be part of the reparations? And how can we heal as much as possible? So that's one way of looking at restorative justice and how it gets applied in a more practical context. The other side of it is one that I think actually offers really almost the best hope in terms of what restorative justice can do. And that's what's happening in schools. So there's a real movement for restorative justice to be used in schools, and I'm talking primary education, so kindergarten, through 12th grade. There are whole schools that are just restorative from the ground up. So students, faculty, staff, administration, they're all putting at the center of everything they do, their relationships and how they interact. What's really exciting about that is that then you have these children, the next generation, growing up. And when harm and conflict does occur, because harm and conflict does occur, they already have a different way to relate to each other. They already have a different way to process that harm and conflict that, again, brings them together and places their relationships at the core of everything so that they can move forward together. And it doesn't have to just be this divisive solution. And again, I think that offers the greatest hope for our society. So the other thing that's really exciting about that particular type of application is that it's adaptable and it's flexible. So when you think about restorative justice, it is something that can apply across systems. So whether it's the criminal justice system, whether it's in education, whether it's social work, or it's policy or governance, even in countries outside of the United States, there are entire restorative cities. You can also have it as a response to environmental harm and conflict. So its applicability is really never ending. It has this ability to apply in all of these different kinds of situations. And whether there's harm and conflict or whether it's just a different approach in terms of how we come together to work and be together. So that's a little bit of background in terms of just restorative justice and its applicability in different ways that people use it and navigate with it. I do want to talk about what we actually offer at Vermont Law School in terms of our programs in the restorative justice program. So we have the Master of Arts in Restorative Justice. And we also have, as I mentioned, the professional certificate in restorative justice. And there's also the opportunity, if you're here thinking about the JD, but things that I'm talking about are of interest, all of the Master of Arts in Restorative Justice courses are cross-listed for the JD students. And you also have the opportunity to pursue a joint degree. So you can get that master's degree and get your JD. The programs that are taught in the restorative justice are taught by adjuncts who are experts in the field, and they come from all over the world. We've got all kinds of different courses from, if you wanted to specialize in victim rights or victim advocacy, if things that we've talked about in terms of criminal justice reform are of interest, there's also the ability to specialize in those areas. We also have experiential opportunities. So if you're interested in doing an externship, if you want to get paired with professionals in the field that are doing this work. We've had students that have done restorative justice work in the Attorney General's office in the state of Vermont. We've had other students that have worked with local community justice centers that have reparative panels, both at the diversion level and at that reentry level for people that are coming out of prison. So there's lots of really interesting opportunities, and we work to tailor them to your specific interests. That's really sort of the academic program, and you can see the list of courses, and we're always going through the process of trying to figure out what we're looking to add. Where are there gaps? Where is there growth in the field? And again, how can we build those into our program? As Dean McCormick mentioned, we are the only Master of Arts in Restorative Justice at a law school in the United States, so it's a very unique opportunity that we have here. The other thing that we have are our centers. So we have the Center for Justice Reform that houses things like our expungement clinic. We have students who have helped hundreds of Vermonters in the state complete petitions for expungement or sealing their criminal records so that they can get a job or housing, or, you know, be the chaperone on their child's field trip. So there's wonderful, just practical opportunities to do some of this work with attorneys in the state. We also have the National Center on Restorative Justice, and the National Center is paired with the University of Vermont and the University of San Diego. We're federally funded, and we have some really just amazing opportunities to provide education for people that are incarcerated. We also are looking to expand education into treatment court settings. We most recently held our first National Restorative Justice Institute that was on restorative approaches in policing, and we had people from all over the country. It was designed as a think tank, but it's helping us set up what's going to be a bigger institute late in the summer. And this is going to invite law enforcement from all across the country to really have those difficult conversations about restorative justice and policing, and how to have the conversations in the communities to really work together to create healing and moving forward. So that is sort of a snapshot of what we have and what we're doing. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Professor Clark. I do have one from Lucy. Does the Center for Justice Reform make a distinction between restorative justice and transformative justice?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so we have not drawn the distinction in terms of the classes, but it is something that has come up in a few different contexts in terms of how that gets presented in some of the class material. So it is one of the things that we talk about in the content of some of the specific courses, and that difference between transformational justice and just pure restorative justice. And there are some differences, but we don't have a specific course, for example, that is only based in transformational justice. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I also have one from Carly. What kinds of careers do a JD Marge alumni go into?
Yeah, so, I will say that we've had a couple students in particular, and one of the things I'll say just in general about the students that come for even just the Marge degree or the joint degree, and that is that they have this often very specific focus about the change that they want to create. And we've had some students where that is really focused on progressive prosecution. And we're fortunate in Vermont that we do have some prosecutors in the state who are really behind a restorative justice approach in terms of the work that they do. And so that is a very natural extension of the JD Marge, is going into, being a state's attorney, but wanting to make decisions that perhaps include referrals to a restorative process instead of even charging someone with an offense. So that's one route. The other interesting one that I've had a few students specifically interested in and have gone into is either mitigation work in the Department of Corrections. So really working with people that are incarcerated and how to improve really living in facilities. And the other one is someone who wanted to do defense mitigation work. So working as a defense attorney, but really trying to figure out how to bring a restorative process into the defense side of that equation. So those are just a couple of examples. There's lots of opportunity, whether again, you wanted to be working in, a juvenile court setting, or if you wanted to be working with, victims of crime, there's lots of different available opportunities for that.
Typically, does progressive reform happen at the state level before adopted at the federal level?
That's an interesting question. So yeah, I think that the adoption of restorative approaches, particularly if you're talking about policy, certainly happens more at a state level. I think just because there's the ability to do that. That being said, we're a great example of the interest in restorative justice as a social movement in this country, because we've been able to get 2 federal grants really to launch the National Center on Restorative Justice, and now also to really manage it and expand our work going forward. So it's certainly, it's interesting because restorative justice truly is ancient, right, in many, many ways. At the same time, it's this resurgent social movement, and there's definite momentum where people are really asking those tough questions, like how do we respond to things differently? We know we've created a problem with mass incarceration, for example. How do we now deconstruct that? How do we decarcerate, but do it in a way that welcomes people back to communities in productive ways, and with support, so that they can be productive members of society and really, reestablish those relationships. And that's something that is being seen at the federal level. So it's, I would say it's happening in both. I think the states are more nimble.
I have a question regarding diversity and restorative justice. And does the master's degree at Vermont Marge offer any courses or opportunities that implements restorative justice and racial justice?
Yeah, so right now, race, crimes, and restorative justice is being taught. It's being offered again this summer, that really dives into that intersection of not just racial discrimination, but diversity. And so that particular class, that is its focus. I had a really interesting, or I'm having a series of interesting meetings, but one was just yesterday with the Center for Death Penalty Litigation. And we're having a conversation because they offer a training on how to litigate race, but we're looking to have them also speak in this particular class, and look at, they have a training again called Our Racist Roots, and looking at how race and how discrimination, including in broader ways, not just in race, but how do we bring those into actual training opportunities so that people understand that there's ways to approach this in the work that they're doing, not just learning about it and not just studying about it.
We touch on that in Origins of Restorative Justice as well, too, correct?
Yes. And again, so diversity, thinking beyond just race, but, ethnicity, are the whole BIPOC community, and all of that is woven throughout, really, I would say most of our restorative justice courses is going to touch on themes that will translate in all of those areas. I mean, we are, always mindful of being, not, I guess, honoring is the word I want to say, indigenous cultures, and the work that we're moving forward, and making sure that it's not performative. This has to be authentic, and it has to come from a place of respecting what we're learning. But then how do we do that? How do we honor the cultures, and how do we seek that approval, if you will, because there's a right way to do things. And we don't always know the right way, but we're always asking for the right way, because we want to make sure that we are not representing things that are also going to cause more harm.
Thank you. So Professor Clark, I have the winter view, even though it's been a long but very snowy, wonderful winter view on while we were answering questions. And it's because when I think of you, I think of cross-country skiing. But tell us a little other tidbit about you.
Yeah, so I do. I love to ski. So that to me is winter. So since we have a whole bunch of coffee aficionados, I mean, that sort of struck me when we were doing the breakfast survey. I will share that I've been a home coffee roaster for probably close to 20 years. So if people have questions about, like, oh, what flavor profile do you like depending on the roast level that you want, I can talk about coffee.
I didn't know that. When we go back to campus, bring some coffee so we can. Our vice president is a coffee aficionado too, so we can brew some as soon as we get back. Well, thank you, Professor Clark. I so appreciate your time. And we are going to move into our next, Ann Linehan, standing by, environmental law. Ann, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
Ready?
Hi, everyone.
Want to tell a little bit about yourself and your favorite background? Or, well, you're not in your favorite background.
I'm the Associate Director of the Environmental Law Center at Vermont Law School. I've been at the law school for almost 23 years now. I'm not a professor, but a lot of what I do is academic advising for the students in all of our different environmental degree programs. So working with students to map out their schedules and sort of put together a plan that takes advantage of all the many environmental opportunities, while also, preparing them to graduate and get out into the world and get those dream jobs going. Outside of the law school, my husband and I run a small brewery. The micro brewing scene in Vermont is pretty hot. And we've got a little tiny one up the road in Tunbridge. Unfortunately, our tasting room has been closed for the last year, but we've been doing a brisk business in curbside pickup of beer. So I'm going to give you an overview of our environmental program. It's a huge program. So I'm going to try and cover as many things as possible without it feeling like lots and lots of lists of different opportunities. So we have 3 different environmental master's degrees. And I remember in Katie's poll earlier in the session, there are quite a few of you here today who are interested in those programs. And so we have students who are getting just a master's degree. So for residential students, that's typically a 1-year program. For online students, that's more like 1.5 years to 2 years. And then we have students who are getting a JD degree, but they're also getting a master's degree. So they're getting a joint degree, and they're going to be able to finish both of those degrees in the same 3 years that it would usually take them to just get a JD degree. And about a quarter or so of our JD students are pursuing one of those joint environmental master's degrees. We offer a series of LLM degrees in the environmental field. I think we have at least one person here on the call today who's interested in the LLM program. And LLM, for those who don't know, is an advanced post-JD degree. There are LLMs in lots of different fields, but the ones that we have here at VLS are on that environmental spectrum. And then we also have a number of dual degree options on the environmental side, where you're getting 2 degrees from 2 different schools. So we have, for example, you can get the Master's in Environmental Law and Policy from Vermont Law School and get an MS in Natural Resources up the road at the University of Vermont. We have a dual degree with Yale's school, newly renamed the Yale School of the Environment. So it's a JD degree and a Master's in Environmental Management. And we have a JD degree. You can get a JD from Vermont Law School, and you can get an MPhil in Environmental Policy from the Department of Land Economy at Cambridge. I'm really proud that one of my advisees, Julia, just got admitted to the Cambridge dual degree program. So she's going to be heading over there next year. We're really excited for her. So you can see this great long list of over 50 different environmental law classes that we offer at VLS. What this means is that there's lots and lots of opportunities to specialize. So if you're interested, energy is a big one here. Food and agriculture law are also big, but also international environmental law, climate change, environmental ethics and justice, water law, land use. It's not just the opportunity to take one class in a particular area. You can often take 2 or 3 or even more than that and really give yourself a nice little specialty within the field of environmental law. Animal rights is another area where we're really growing our program. So lots of opportunities to specialize. And it's not just in the classroom. We're really big fans of getting hands-on experience as part of your education. We have a number of clinics and institutes and research programs where you can really be learning hands-on. So here we have a picture of the students in the very first class of our environmental justice clinic. April is there in the picture. You're going to be hearing from her when the students speak in a little bit. And clinics are just, they're a great way to get hands-on experience. You're working on real issues for real clients, but you're in a little bit of the safety net of you're still in school. You've got staff attorneys supervising you, making sure you don't do any, don't mess up too terribly while you're learning. So the clinics are a great opportunity to do that. There are a bunch of different models. So the environmental advocacy clinic is a litigation clinic. The environmental justice clinic does more of a community lawyering model. I hope April will chat a little bit more about what that experience was like. Really, not the idea is not swooping in and helping some poor struggling community and being the one who saves them, but it's really working with the people in the community to work together on whatever issues they're struggling with. So a little different model there. We have a food and agriculture clinic that's more of a transactional clinic, so not litigation. And our energy clinic is also a transactional clinic. They focus a lot on community solar projects for low-income communities in Vermont and New Hampshire. You can see a picture there of some students in front of one of the installations. And then we also have some research teams. So those are also working on real projects for real clients, but it's more along the lines of research and writing, white papers, book chapters. And we have a food and agriculture research team. We have an energy research team. We have some practicum opportunities, which are a little bit different from clinics, but we have a new climate justice practicum that started this year. The climate justice practicum and the environmental justice clinic are two really nice ways. We have students who are interested in both restorative justice and environmental issues, and opportunities like those can be a really nice way to tie together a couple of different interests. So let's see, what else did I not mention from that list? We have some international opportunities through our US-Asia partnerships for environmental law and our sustainability law lab, and those are more on the research side, working with international partners doing environmental law research. Let me talk about our summer program. I'm really looking forward to summer. Summer in Vermont is just, I like the winter sports too, but summer is really a reward for all of us who make it through the long winter and mud season. These are actual students floating in the White River, which actually flows right past our campus. They're taking a break from their studies. So the summer session is really one of the highlights of the environmental program. So we offer over 20 different environmental law classes in the summer. They're short, intense classes. They're taught for the most part by adjuncts who are practitioners. So they are experts in their field, and they're coming to us for a couple of weeks in the summer, and our students get to learn from them. So it's people like Deborah Harris, who's the chief of the section on environmental crimes at the U.S. Department of Justice, and she comes and teaches our environmental crimes class. So it's just a terrific opportunity to learn from an absolute expert in the field. So we have, again, the opportunity to specialize throughout the summer if you wanted to take a number of energy classes or food and agriculture classes, environmental ethics and justice classes. You could certainly do that, or you can take more of a buffet approach. We have not just students on campus in the summer, but we have a lot of scholars who visit. We have environmental journalists who come. We put on a lecture series that goes on throughout the summer called the Hot Topics in Environmental Law Brown Bag Lecture Series. And so, in between classes, you get to hear from some of these journalists and other visitors and experts on whatever hot thing that they are working on. So it's just a really exciting time on campus. If you're interested in environmental stuff, this summer is a real highlight. I also don't want to forget to mention our environmental podcast. It's called Hot House Earth. And we look at a range of different environmental topics, but as we've been going along in the last year and a half that we've had the podcast, we've evolved to looking a lot at issues of equity and justice. We've looked at things like climate migration. We just are rolling out a new mini series of the podcast that's called Elevate, and that's looking at the role of women in environmental law. And one of our current students is actually co-hosting that mini-series. So we're really excited. The first mini-series episode just went live yesterday. So wherever you download your podcast, you can look for Hot House Earth and give a listen to that, the first little episode of that mini-series. I know I just rattled through a whole lot of things there. I could go on and on about the environmental program. There are so many opportunities across the different degrees. So, all of those different clinics and research teams and that huge long list of classes and the summer program. These are all things that you can do whether you're a JD student or a master's student or an LLM student or getting one of the joint degrees. All of these opportunities are available to you across the different programs. Let me see what questions people have.
And there was a question earlier about the benefit of adding a master's to your JD program. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are two main benefits there. One is this, just that you're adding an additional credential. So you're saying to an employer, I didn't just take a couple of classes in environmental law, I have an additional specialized graduate degree in the field. So it's just actually adding that credential to your resume is one big benefit. And I think the other big benefit is the summer program. If you're doing the joint degree, the summer program is one of your semesters of the master's program. And so it's really opening up an entire extra semester to fit in environmental classes. If you're just doing the JD degree, you have the opportunity to do some environmental electives and clinics, but you're also really busy with your bar prep courses that Dean Brennan wants you to be taking and your required courses for graduation. If you decide to do a semester in practice where you're off campus for an entire semester, you've got a lot to do on the JD side. So adding on the master's degree opens up a whole extra semester that's just environmental. And so that's the real benefit there, is it just lets you do more.
Thank you. Lindsay has a question, and this is in general. Are there opportunities for participants in the online programs to work collaboratively with other students, or are the classes more geared towards individual assignments? I guess that would depend on the modality of the class. Relatedly, are there any other opportunities for online students to visit campus outside of the summer program?
Okay, so in the online program, the classes they're very interactive. There are a lot of group projects, so students are working together on those, and there's a fair amount of responding to your reading and then responding to what your classmates have said. So it's interactive in that way. Although our online classes, what they are not is everybody logging in at the same time and listening to a live lecture together. That's not the model. Our model is an asynchronous model, but even though you're not all logging on live at the same time, it still is really interactive. And then as for opportunities to come to campus, somebody who's doing the online program, presumably they're working full-time or have other obligations that are keeping them from relocating to Vermont. So the summer classes, because they tend to be short, 2 weeks long, or even some classes that are just weekend intensives, that tends to work the best, I think, for people who have a limited amount of time to come to Vermont. But we have a couple of short intensive classes during the year. We have a couple of field study classes that are really short. We have we have a Cuba field study in November. I guess that's not really coming to campus, but it's a time to be in person with other students in a short window of time. In this past year with COVID, all of our clinics have been online because everything's been online, and so our students who are always online have had the opportunity to participate in clinics the way they haven't before. I honestly don't know what that's going to look like in the future when we're back on campus, but I'm pretty hopeful that we will continue to have ways for our online students to participate in things like the clinics and the research teams.
And a number of our online students can cross-register for a semester if they can take time out of their work, etc. So, Ian, thank you. I don't know if there's any more environmental questions. Okay, what's your favorite winter activity and what are you excited to do for summer?
I'm a snowshoer. I'm not one for hurtling downhill at high speeds. So I like to snowshoe and get way out off the trails in the woods. For spring and summer coming along, I'm an avid gardener. I have a big flower garden at my house, so I'm really looking forward to the snow melting and getting back out there in my garden.
and does have a beautiful garden. I just had a picture. In Vermont, it's so lovely because we have the 4 seasons. Well, thank you very much, Anne. I so appreciate you taking the time today. So we're going to go, the best part is our students, and thank you all. And thank you all for, we have so much information to get through. I do appreciate your time this Saturday. So hold on here. So I wanted to put this screen up, but then I think I'm going to share, I'm going to stop share for a little bit. It's achievable. Obtaining a law degree is very achievable, a master's degree. You can do this. And this popped up when I was working on my slides, and Bailey, pictured in the red, is a master's environmental law and policy that graduated a few years ago. And then the other students pictured here are my graduating students for 2021. And it was really joyful to see this because you're just starting the journey, but I can tell you it's going to be, it's going to go quickly. So I am switching it. Oh, no, here's a picture of our town. So I'll have the students talk a little bit about the town and life, but I'm going to switch to stop share. I'm going to stop share. Hold on one second. Bear with me. All right, so we're back a little bit, give you a break from the slideshow. I'd like to introduce our students who are joining us. I have Fido Andre, who's our student trustee. I have Robert Baker and Robert Satuel. Fido and Robert are 2 L's. And then April is a 3L. So I was hoping that you guys could introduce yourselves, a little bit about your journey to VLS, and then I'm going to open it for questions, because I know there's some, what is it like to live in the winter in Vermont, all the good stuff. Give us the inside out and what you're studying at VLS, please. Fido, you want to go first?
Ladies first, of course.
All right, thank you, Fido. Hi, everyone. I'm April Urbanowski. I am a 3rd year, just as you heard. This is my dog, Hank, who's barking. You might have seen him lounging on my bed earlier, but now he's up and at it. And to quote Katie, it does go by very fast. I'm looking at my calendar, and it's less than 50 days till graduation, or until end of classes. And I am no longer, I'll now enter the alum community. And I will say one thing to keep in mind while you're at law school are the days are very long, but the years are very short. So you'll be in the mud of it, just reading everything that Dean Brennan assigns to you for contracts class. But before you know it, you will be a 3rd year looking for jobs and applying for the bar, and then emailing Dean Brennan about the bar with all your questions you may have for it. But how I found my way to Vermont Law School is I graduated in international relations and geography. I took a gap year teaching social justice at colleges. And then I decided I wanted to be more of an advocate. And I was like, what is the best form of an advocate other than someone standing in court, arguing and advocating for someone? So that's what brought me to law. And I'm very interested in environmental justice work. So when I popped on Google and I was like, where are the best environmental law schools? Vermont Law School popped up, and I just fell in love with the campus and the community. We do have a very tight-knit community here. I think everyone in this chat I've had personal conversations with have been in their office just chatting about life or just chatting about Vermont Law School in general. Like you've heard, I am a 3rd year. I did get to do the clinic. My path of classes are a little unique, where I did a clinic last year and I was in the entering class of the environmental justice clinic. It was a fantastic experience. I got to work under Miriam Engelman Lotto. And unfortunately, she's no longer with VLS because she just got promoted. Promoted is the right word, maybe, nominated for deputy chief or deputy counsel for the EPA. So huge accomplishment. And that was a really fascinating thing, because in class you're learning how to write memos, how to write arguments, but here you're actually writing the arguments and the memos for real life clients. And then for my third year, since we're all remote, I'm actually doing SIP. So I got to SIP at an organization called Environmental Working Group. SIP is semester in practice. And then this semester, I'm also doing a part-time SIP under 3 judges at the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I'm clerking under them. And to echo Dean Brennan, it is a fantastic experience. I wish I would have thought about clerking way before my last semester here at Vermont Law School. And I hope to be able to clerk next year under a judge. In some fun things I did while I was on campus besides really commit to studying is a lot of students don't do this and I don't know why, but Vermont, South Royalton has a local radio station and you can get your own radio show and do that. So I did that for all of 2L year. I had a radio show. I actually brought a lot of classmates on with me and we just chilled. It was a great Monday night thing to do, play some tunes, talk to Vermont, the whole state, because you were on local radio. I also am in charge or president this year of Barrister's Bookshop, which is the bookshop on campus. It's its own student-ran bookshop and it's a nonprofit. So it's an awesome opportunity where we, the students, get to decide everything about the bookshop, how to run it, cost of books, communities we want to donate to, people we want to donate to, and it's a really cool opportunity. So that is my brief, very impacted time at Vermont Law School.
Thank you, April. Who'd like to go next, Robert or Fido? Fido?
Yeah, it looks like Fido. Let's go.
I think Robert passed the floor to Fido.
Perfect. Welcome and good afternoon. My name's Fido Andre, and I'm from Miami, Florida, which is a non-UVE state. I'm a 2L. And how did I find my way to Vermont Law School from Miami? I took 2 years off after undergrad. I was a former athlete. And so I worked at a law firm and the attorney that I worked for, he was a VLS alum way in Florida. And I was applying to law schools and he told me about Vermont Law School and he said how it wasn't like a traditional law school. It was not cutthroat. And the students, staff and faculty, it was really a community and they really care about the growth of everyone and they care about justice. I was a criminal justice major in undergrad, and so justice is at the core of my heart. So I came to Vermont Law School. As everyone said, I'm a student trustee, and that's one of the best experiences here at Vermont Law School for me, other than taking Professor or Dean Brennan and Dean President McCormick's courses. I'm the president of Christian Law Fellowship. I'm a staff editor for Vermont Journal of Environmental Law. And what do I enjoy doing during the winter? I've been cross-country skiing. I had to. I don't like the snow, but I make it do. I stay inside. What I like to do is cook during the winters and spend my extra time doing that if I'm not studying and staring at my computer screen. So welcome again. My name is Fido Andre, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Robert.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Baker. I'm a 2L from Atlanta, Georgia, a member of Vermont Law Review, vice president of BALSA, a student ambassador, and I'm too a member of the Christian Law Fellowship. I'm a former student athlete who did not know what to do with majors in history and political science. And like April, after researching, all signs pointing to law school. And to echo what has already been said, VLS is welcoming. You will find support across the board, from faculty to library staff and to groundskeepers and members of the local community. There are various opportunities to gain help. Dean Brennan has already mentioned the school's academic support program. I found it extremely helpful during my first year of law school, and also that professors are willing and encourage meetings outside of class. And as well, as I mentioned, I'm a student ambassador. You have student ambassadors like myself who can speak with you about topics you may find to be more relatable than with professors. VLS offers mental health support because, as has already been mentioned, law school is stressful, but it is doable, you know. And as a former student athlete, I compare law school to football, specifically training camp. It's tough, but it's supposed to be. When you graduate and pass the bar, the decisions you make will affect the lives of others. The purpose of law school is to prepare you with knowledge to practice. And I believe VLS does just that. There are times during my current 2L year, I still remember the principles learned in both President and Dean McCormick's civil procedure course and Dean Brennan's contracts course. Their efforts, attention to detail, and practical knowledge of law and how it's applied in practice are really exemplary. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that their approach is contagious and rubs off on you in the process. And when you obtain those opportunities for experiential learning in the summer, whether it be for a firm, a nonprofit, or for a governmental agency, you really appreciate that. I was blessed with the opportunity to work for a firm this past summer, despite the hurdles COVID-19 presented. And I will be clerking for a federal district judge this summer. And I'll kind of end with the key to law school is developing a schedule and remaining committed to that schedule. Set aside time for yourself to really decompress, and also communicating your experience with others, because I promise you, other people can relate as well. And there was a question posed in the chat by Ethan Mark, um, proposed earlier about coming from the South and how to adjust to Vermont weather. I say embrace the experience, being that I came from Atlanta, Georgia. I never anticipated I would like snow in Vermont. However, I found myself really embracing that, especially upon my recent return to the campus here in South Royalton. I had the pleasure of skiing for the first time during my 1L year, spring semester with former president and dean of VLS and my property professor. And I fell a lot, but I got up a lot, you know, and it was wonderful. It was a great experience, and I plan to do it again next winter. So, but to be specific, get a good coat, get a good set of boots, and get some gloves, and you'll be just fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for waiting, Ethan, for that. I was holding us the whole webinar. What can you suggest to students preparing to go to Vermont Law, what they can do this summer? Anyone want to go first? And if there's any questions, please, the students are very transparent. Just pop them into the Q&A.
Yeah, I could take a jump at that question. One of the best things to do right now is relax, enjoy your free time, go outside, take a nice walk. Law school, as you heard, is more than a full-time job, and that's not to scare you or anything. That's just we want to be honest and truth. As soon as you start law school, you're going to be very busy with studying and reading. So like, do what you enjoy now. Really start to think what matters and like what is the best way you can learn to really like make yourself do better your first week of learning. So I learned really fast that I learn best when I highlight, color coordinate things, and that worked well during my first week of at campus. So really just enjoy your time and then make sure you're ready to learn is the best thing I have to say.
Fido, Robert.
I'll say that my method, I learned that, and I got it from current President Dean McCormick, that spaced repetition, multiple exposures to the material, but really for me personally, rewriting the law, rewriting the principles and the cases, because it really sticks with you in your mind. So that's just my personal approach to law school, just old school, handwritten.
And then, can you all hear me? Perfect. I guess my approach would be to focus on writing before you get to law school, and focusing on what good writing is. It may change a little bit when you get to law school, based off like whatever professor you have. But that was one of my challenges when I first came to law school, and you all can tell I'm on the journal now, so I've improved. But focusing on good writing, reading good writing, is going to be the key, I know, for law school. So get ready for that. And that's my answer.
Kelly Burkett just popped on the video. She's in our admissions office and applying to law school. So I hope you're listening, Kelly, to all this good advice. In the meantime, start reading, writing. Kelly had one of my favorite things. It's gonna launch, it's gonna segue into our next question. She said, "Hey, I'm running late. It's hard for me to get the pig out," because she has the most beautiful pet pig, like big. It's a big pig, and she snorts a lot if she's inside. So thank you, Kelly. Which segues to is the small town environment of South Royalton something you found as a benefit to your studies? Who'd like to take a jab at that first?
I will. Coming from Miami, a busy city, man, being in Vermont, you could step outside your door on some afternoons or even mornings, and it's like you hear nothing at all. I love my peace and quiet to get work done. So that's been like a tremendous help for me in my growth and studies.
And I'll just echo what Fido has already said, the peace and quiet. And it's it's really, the environment, is just, I'm here for a reason, coming from Atlanta, like Fido has said, he's from Miami, a busy city, being here, I can really focus on what I'm here for, which is to get my JD, and also how close campus is here, and sort of how accessible campus is with your student ID card. I mean, I really appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, for me, honestly, South Royalton was one of the biggest drawing points for me to go to Vermont Law School, is because I knew I needed that peace and quiet to study. But it's also amazing because when you're studying and you're like, I had too much, I need to stop looking at books or screens, you can just take a hike up Kent. And I don't think a lot of other law schools can offer that. But it's also amazing in the terms of the people that live in South Royalton. The community members really embrace this, but you also get a really great opportunity to see your friends. I know there's many times where I'll just walk down to my friend's house, which is a couple, steps away, and we get to hang out. The whole community's there. You'll learn, like we said, Vermont Law School, everyone kind of knows each other, which is really awesome. Like, it was so exciting today for me to see Robert and Fido, because I was like, oh my goodness, I haven't seen them in a year. But they can also attest that they're they're 2 L's and I'm a 3 L, but we still were able to form a friendship while on campus and not have the same classes. And I think one of that was because we were in such a small town.
Thank you, April. There's a question on transitioning from either undergrad or a full-time job. Can you talk about that transition from working life or undergrad to law school?
I can talk about the transition from working to going to coming to law school. I think that it's one and the same, working and being in law school. It's a job for me. That's what I take it as. And I know Robert spoke on it earlier about having a schedule, and having someone who, because I worked at a law firm and working under an attorney, it's like having a professor and working for them, and them seeing your work and different things of that nature. But I think that the biggest thing is staying focused on what the task at hand is. I know there's a lot of extracurricular activities, and you're not going to be able to do the things that you used to do when you used to work. Like, you can just go out on the weekend and do whatever. But on law school on the weekends, for me, I know I get to study and different things of that nature. So it's different in that aspect, from working to being in law school.
I'll just say that I can't really answer that question. I'm not the best person to answer it because I came straight from undergrad. So yeah, I just say that the one thing that helped me from undergrad was the schedule from football, lifting, meetings, practice, and having to juggle multiple things at one time with, and then shifting just in a matter of 2 months, 3 months to, wow, I could really just focus on law school and that's it. Yeah, it was really great for me.
Yeah, I think so. Had a gap year in between, but there was a lot of things I noticed. I think one good thing when you start law school, if you're coming from employment or something like that where you weren't in school, is creating those boundaries again with friends and family who aren't in law school. I am the first person in my family who went to law school, and no one really understands what that entails unless you are in law school. So just kind of, reminding them friendly that like, hey, from like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. I'm in class, or not in class, but I'm reading, like I'm at the library, like I can't hang out this weekend. It's not something to do to disappoint them. It's just you need that time and space. And like also that time and space, like right before holidays when it's final season, your friends and family are going to be contacting you like, oh, what are your plans? Let's do this holiday party. And you have to just, to be the best student you can, you have to say like, hey, sorry, I'm still in school. So creating those boundaries, kind of like softening the blow now to friends and family that you're entering back into school is what you should do. And then the other thing I really loved about going into a grad degree, undergrad is a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie, I had a blast in undergrad. I think everyone does. College experience is an experience in whole, but law school and grad school is very serious. We are really dedicated on our reading and writing. Undergrad, you didn't have to prepare for class if you didn't want to. You could just show up and like go with the flow. That's not the case in law school. You really do have to be ready. So just get ready for that mentality of like when you're in undergrad, it was kind of about like the social scenes and the fun, where law school, when we say read your cases before class, we do mean read your cases before class. Try and get that comprehension, because if you don't, one, you're really just messing yourself over for class, and two, you never know if you're going to get cold called that day, and you want to know your stuff the day you get cold called. So it's a different mentality. And also, like I said, just prepare people that that like you're entering school and this is 3 years of dedicated focus. I actually had to turn down a wedding invitation because I'm studying for the bar, and that was a hard thing for them to understand, is like, what do you mean you can't be part of our wedding when you're taking the bar? But that's some of the things you have to do while you're a student.
Thank you. I have a question regarding working and going to law school. What are your thoughts on trying to do it all? And Professor Brennan or Dean Brennan?
Yeah, I see the head shaking, and I'm glad that's come through. They're showing it from the experience. As I said before, with that question that came to me about the timing is real. If you're doing 16 hours of classes and then 2 to 3 hours outside of classes, that's a minimum of 48 hours of law school work, and potentially 64 hours if we have that 3 hours. Then you have final exams and you have papers. There'll be some weeks that it's really busy, and you want to be carefully scheduling and planning. So on the down weeks that are only the 48 hours, you're doing a little bit of work ahead. So those weeks that are 64 aren't so bad. And you also have to stay healthy. You need to sleep. You need to eat. You need to be able to get outside and walk around. And Robert mentioned space repetition. It's not seeing it once, it's seeing it over and over, keep revisiting the material, which just isn't compatible with having significant outside commitments. It just, you're here. It's, April said that the years go by quickly. It's a short period of time. You're here to really advance your career, and you don't want to undermine your chances of succeeding by drawing away time that you just don't have.
I also love that Dean McCormick popped up as soon as we.
Yeah.
I know,
Dean
I was going to
McCormick,
scream,
you wanna add
no,
anything?
no working. It's not, it's just really hard, and a lot of students try to do that, and then they end up either not doing well in their classes or eventually leaving their jobs. I felt like that happened a lot this year in particular. So I completely agree with Professor Brennan. And I do want to say it's so nice to see April, Fido, and Robert. I know it's still virtual, but it's really nice. And Robert, did you say you're back in South Royalton?
Yes, I did. I thought you'd recognize, but no, of course you couldn't because mask and I saw you in Chase on yesterday. That was me.
Okay. All right. Well, it's great. It was great to see you, even though I didn't recognize you. And it's just, I don't know. I really miss you guys, and I can't wait to get back to normal ASAP. And Robert, tell them not to work.
Thank you, Dean McCormick. So at this time, I'd like to, for those who need to leave, because I know April, Robert, and Fido, you have a lot that you need to do. And I can certainly talk about housing and such if you all need to hop off. Dean McCormick, Professor Clark, Professor Dean Brennan, I really appreciate your time. For our students who are still attending the webinar, I am here. I can answer any type of admissions questions, or I have our Director of Financial Aid and Enrollment, Mel DeFlorio, here too, who can answer any kind of financial aid questions as well. So I'm giving a pass to anyone who needs to sign off and maybe hit the slopes. Yes, okay. Bye, April. Bye, Fido. Bye. I figured the students were busy.
Everyone.
Oh, yep, and Dean McCormick, she's passed on her email, and Professor Clark and Dean Brennan. I thank you all. All right. I know there's some still, bye Professor Clark, thank you. And Robert still, and Robert, thank you, Robert. So I wanted to, if you all, if attendees are happy to stay on, I'm gonna share my screen again and just go through a couple of short things and see if that, am I sharing? I am sharing. Good. Thank you, Mel. One question, housing opportunities are, and are there job opportunities in the area for those not attending school, and the cost of housing? In this photo, I don't know, can you see my cursor? Ooh, and Mel, I need to learn how to use the cursor better. But so the campus is like right here. This is our clinical building here. And so our main campus is here. And the reason why I picked this slide is because it shows where all of this and all into here, these are shops. This is the post office. There's a restaurant here, but this kind of gives you an idea of the town. This is called the Porch, but all of these are housing. That's all student housing, and you can find student housing on our off-campus housing website, which if Genevieve or Kelly can put into the chat. Now, Kelly, I know that you're living in town. Can you talk a little bit about your apartment and the rent?
Yeah, so I live basically right across the street from the campus. And a lot of what you're going to find is it's not like, as you can see from the picture, it's not traditional like apartment complexes, but they're like very old houses that have been renovated into apartments, which personally I like because they have a lot of character and are pretty unique. There's a lot of options like within a mile of campus, which I think is also really, I mean, even just working there was very convenient for me. Generally looking at rent for a 1-bedroom apartment, you're looking at $600, $650 a month, 2 bedrooms, $1,300, $1,350, somewhere in that range. And our housing website, when you're admitted to, and our Facebook groups will allow you to find roommates so you can share those costs. And I think what I've noticed a lot too is that a lot of the expenses are included, like heat and electricity, which is nice because they are older houses. So you don't have to worry about that fluctuation month to month. But yeah, it's a really cute town. I was very pleasantly surprised moving here. I love my apartment. Lots of character in general.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, because you moved with a spouse, can you talk about employment opportunities around the general area?
Yeah. So obviously I got hired at Vermont Law School, but I was searching for a job when we got here. My husband works at Dartmouth as a baseball coach. So I think there's a lot of people that end up going in that direction. Hanover and West Lebanon, there's certainly plenty of job opportunities there. But I found a lot of opportunities in the surrounding areas, Randolph, Bethel, Montpelier, right in town in South Royalton. There's certainly, if you want to find a part-time job, you definitely will be able to. And with your spouse, there's Dartmouth Hitchcock, there's the Gifford Center, there's a lot of different options for if you're moving here with someone.
Thank you. Mel, there's been some questions about financial aid. Do you want to give your brief overview on financial aid?
Sure. And I'll keep it brief because there's a lot that we can dive into in terms of the technicalities of borrowing financial aid and that process. And I believe we're going to be announcing a webinar that's specific to financial aid for anyone that is interested in attending that. But I can speak generally about financial aid is that so long as you meet the basic criteria for federal student aid, you can apply by filling out a FAFSA free application for federal student aid. Maybe you're familiar with it already from undergrad. Maybe your parents took the liberty to do it all for you in undergrad, in which case good for you, but now you got to do it yourself. And it's not that hard. And once you complete that, you'll find that there are federal loan programs available to help pay for those expenses that Kelly was describing with rent, or if you need a car to make those car payments, just basic adult expenses that are going to come up. That's where federal student aid comes in. I think I saw too someone asking about online programs for the master's degree online, that you can access the same federal student loan programs as the JD students, as a traditional student who's going on campus. If you're online, you can borrow money not only to pay for your tuition and fees, but also to pay for living expenses, laptops, all the things you're going to need to be successful in your graduate or JD programs. So what the most important thing I would say at this point is, if you're interested in using federal student aid, you'll want to make sure to do the FAFSA application. It's free. So if you end up on a website that is asking you to pay, then you are on the wrong website. You need to go to fafsa.gov. Maybe one of our counselors could drop that link in the chat for us. And truly, it's a 15 to 20-minute process to do that FAFSA. And you're not obligated to take out any financial aid. It just lets you know that you're eligible. And then that gives my financial aid office the opportunity to let you know what you can qualify for student loans, but you're definitely not obligated to borrow any money or beholden to the government once you've completed that application. And that application is good for any law school that you're applying to, or any school that you're applying to, that you'd go ahead and list any school that you're interested in attending in the upcoming year, and they'll get your FAFSA information and be able to get you a financial aid award. And it's going to look at the something important that I want to stress to students too is, as you're getting financial aid awards from various institutions, to not only look at the tuition and not only look at your scholarship, but look at what the cost of living is in each of these schools. If you're applying for a school in the city, what are those expenses going to be versus living in a rural community? And definitely reach out to admissions to see if there's any current students you can talk to about what their budgets look like. A lot of it is dependent on you and what you're bringing with your expenses. And in terms of working first year, we can't stress enough, and I'm going to just reiterate that working during your first year is not going to be a good option for you, but we do have federal work study programs for our 2Ls and 3Ls for our master's students. And so that way you could get a job at the library, at the fitness center. You could help us out in the financial aid office or in admissions. We have positions for you, and we'd love to have you working on campus once you get settled in after your first year. It's a really great opportunity to earn some money to pay for those, streaming services and pay for your cell phone bills and all that good stuff. So I'll go ahead and I'll drop the financial aid email in the chat as well if it hasn't been done already. And feel free to reach out to us with any and all questions about financial aid. And really appreciate you all taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Mel. I'm going to skip over some slides because we were talking about scholarship opportunities, and Peyton just asked about VLS provide scholarship opportunities or have those available. Do you want to talk a little bit about that too, Mel?
Sure. Yeah. So what we do in the application process is we have what's considered to be like a need blind um, uh, awarding system for merit scholarships. So we look at a number of items, including your LSAT score and your GPA, and we'll go ahead and offer you a merit scholarship based on that application information. Then we also have need-based aid for students that complete the FAFSA, or if you're an international student, we have a separate application for you since you wouldn't qualify to do the FAFSA. And so we would look at your eligibility using that application. And it really, the need-based aid is to help offset expenses that for tuition. So if your merit scholarship covers less than 40% of tuition, that's where the need-based aid comes in to kind of to bump that for you to help offset those expenses. You can get outside scholarships. And I always encourage students, check with your town, your city, check with your state, do some research and see if there are any scholarships that you might qualify to help pay for books. Even those smaller scholarships can go a long way to offsetting student loan debt. Yeah, along with the work study and then really proper budgeting. And our office in financial aid has a lot of great tools for you to help you budget. If you've never sat down and done a monthly budget, it's a really important life skill that's part of our function in the financial aid office. We teach a lot about financial literacy, how to make sure that what you have each month, you have enough money every month to pay for all of your expenses, and how to make those cuts so that you're making ends meet. But yeah, in terms of the scholarships, you got the merit awards that you get notified by admissions of what those scholarships are. And then the financial aid office will let you know if you qualify for any need-based aid to supplement that.
Thank you. There was a quick question, and I should know this by heart. What was the average merit scholarship award last year? I feel like it was around 24.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking at the average, on average about our students get about 50% off of their total tuition. So yeah, about $25,000 would be the average scholarship. And then you could use student loans to cover the remaining balance. I can say that the average student loan debt overall for our students who graduated last year, I believe was under $130,000 was what the average student left with in student loan debt for the JD programs. Our master's degree average hovers around $50,000 a year, which is typical. If you look at national averages, I believe we're even below the national average when it comes to our law students getting JD degrees. And it's an investment. It feels like a big number, something definitely not to take lightly, but if this is something you're passionate about, you think about the things that you would invest in, whether it's your medical care or a mortgage. This is your future. So you see those big numbers and what that loan debt is. There are a lot of really great repayment options through the federal student loan programs. You have public service loan forgiveness. You have income-based repayment plans, extended options that really make it an affordable investment for you. If you're really passionate, if Vermont Law School feels like this is just the perfect school for me, how am I going to make it work? Then we're happy to work with you in our office to tell you what a monthly payment looks like, and with the debt that you anticipate to leave with. And then you can decide that if that amount is something that's worth it for you, you know, a $300 a month loan payment after you graduate, but you're doing what you're passionate about, and you're on track to meet your career goals, then I'd say federal student loans are a really great option to consider in your plans.
Thank you very much, Mel. I'm going back to the town slide. Two things, public transportation in South Royalton. We don't have any. I tell you, Vermont is, it doesn't have a lot of public transportation. I know some students come with cars, some do not, because it's a very walkable campus as far as everything can meet your needs. There was a question about four-wheel drive. I do not have four-wheel drive, but some students do. It's more of a question, winter tires. So whether you have four-wheel drive, whether you have no four-wheel drive, you need those good winter tires. So that's a big thing on that. And I want to talk to Lucy. She's a single parent of a teenager. So I'm getting my cursor again. Here's the campus. The high school is like just down the road here, and it's very doable. There's a group on campus, a parent group on campus. I have single moms from little ones to single moms with teenagers. My older sister went to law school as a single mom, so it's very doable. The town is, it's the, what is, Mel went to high school. Mel, talk about your high school. I was like, wait,
I was about to say that I'm an alum of South Royalton High School and elementary school. They're all one. I grew up in South Royalton, Vermont, and went off to school, and full circle, here I am, however many years later, I'm not going to say, back in South Royalton as the senior director for enrollment management. So, you know, you could say that might speak to the experience I had at South Royalton. And I will say, you know, it's a different, you know, when I went off to college and realized that it wasn't the norm to have a graduating class of 30. But that was my graduating class in high school. So you get, everyone knows you. It's a really tight-knit community, and you definitely feel like, as a child myself, growing up in South Royalton and going to South Royalton High School, it felt more like a family than anything. So I can speak for that. And if anyone wanted to reach out to me about the high school or South Royalton in general, I can give you lots of insight on my experience.
Thank you, Mel. Stefan asked if there's an ice rink there. We build one in the winter right on this town green, right here. And then there's one in Bethel. Hockey's big in Vermont. Hockey, skiing, cross country. So all those winter sports are pretty big. I wanted to put it out there to see if anybody had any general admissions questions. Can you hear my dog starting to, what? Why are you starting to growl? Do we have any? Our applications for our summer accelerated JD are, oh, here we go. Thank you very much. Our wait list process. So we start with a hold process. So if you're on hold, then what we do is we periodically check in with you and we see where we are as a class. And then as we move through the cycle, I'll know more. My deadline for deposits is April 15th. So after April 15th, I have a lot more knowledge on my wait list, on my hold list, but it's good. And really keep in contact with us. If we know you're interested and you're on hold and I can open my class and I know you're like, I'm coming to VLS, that's important. Call, check in periodically. It does take some time. Okay, I love talking about personal statements. So one thing about personal statements is it's about you. I really want to know about you, why you want to go to law school, and the skills that you bring that would add to our community. So a lot of times it's about a personal anecdote. So I get to know you, and then maybe you came in. I had someone who worked in public health, and they were working in their job with a legal aid firm, and that's why they wanted to go to law school. So they tied a little bit about who they were, maybe a familial experience that shaped them, and then this interaction with the law, why they want to go to law school, and wow, are you determined? Are you a leader? Do you have intellectual curiosity? Show me the skills that you have to succeed in law school. It's hard, and put your best foot forward. If there's any deficiencies in your application, use an addendum for that. This is your job interview. And I love reading personal statements. Make sure you spell check, make sure you have someone else read it so that they can kind of get an idea of who you are from your personal statement. Someone who doesn't know you read it. I would avoid quoting other people. I want to know from you. I want to know, it's all about you. I want to know you. Do not, whatever you do, avoid examples from high school. Don't be too personal. I want to know who you are right now. All right. So LSATs, last year my LSAT median was a 152 and approximately 3.2 GPA. I do look at files holistically. So if you fall beneath the 152, I still take a look at your file. I look at GPA too. I look at your letters of recommendation. So it's important to have a really well put together holistic application. Some students will apply before they have their LSAT score. I tend not to review a file until I have the LSAT score. Well, I don't review a file before I have the LSAT, but some students like to get it all in, and then the LSAT score will feed into us automatically. I'm a big study for the LSAT, study for the LSAT, study for the LSAT. Once you take that LSAT, it takes a couple weeks for the score to report. That's when you really want to dig in and finalize your application. Put all your time into studying for the LSAT. I'm trying to think what else that I would want to say. Ask me more questions. I'm going to take Jaden's question. What are athletics like at VLS? Okay, so I played basketball my whole life, and it's a comfort space for me. I've seen there's interclub level basketball. They're indoor courts. I can connect you with Kia. She's an alum. She played D1 basketball. A lot of times there's a group of students that go to the high school and play basketball. And I would love if you got this going. We do this faculty staff basketball against the students game. So we do that as well. And I'm terrible. I'm absolutely terrible. But I still went out there and played. But there's also Dartmouth, and sometimes there's intercollegiate games that go on, but you can definitely find, oh, and you know who's a great basketball player? Professor Brennan, right? Professor Brennan played basketball, but there's opportunities. A lot of times they'll go to the high school gym, and there's ways to have that need. We have ultimate frisbee, outdoor club, soccer's big, rugby, anything along those lines. All right. So do I have, what would be the biggest advice and something that you know from your past experience for someone who's looking at applying to law school to plan and prepare? Kennedy, depending on where you are, I think if you're still in undergrad, it's really important to find passion in your undergraduate and explore all those opportunities, get to know professors, do well in your classes, just really demonstrate that in a love for academics and co-curriculars. I think my big thing is getting to know you. And we had a committee meeting yesterday, and it's that one thing that we grab onto and say, wow, we really believe this student's going to do well in our community and in law school. So I think more than anything, it's about being yourself and finding what drives you and what you love to do. Um, let's see. Lucy asked, I am unsure if I want to apply for the Marge online or in person. Do I need to? Oh, luckily you don't. So it's so easy. When you apply, you can apply directly to Vermont Law School. And if you apply initially for the online program and you decide, oh, well, maybe I do want to be residential, we can switch your modality. So I think if you're leaning towards one, I would apply in that modality, but if we need to switch you up, we can. I can secretly tell you Genevieve is super helpful with the online if you're looking at that option. And then as we explained earlier, sometimes students will cross-register. So if you start online and then want to finish in person, you can do that too. We're really very flexible. All right. Do we have any more questions? Thank you. Mel, I always make these really long. I know. I try to cut it down, and I will be doing some more, even going deeper into environmental law and programs for my master's students out there as well too. All right. Well, I thank you all. Let me stop share. Let me stop share. I don't know why I have such a hard time stopping share. It's like the big red button. So I want to thank my colleagues, Shirley, Genevieve, Mel, Kelly, who's going to be a future swan, Simon. I so thank you for helping me out today. And David, thank you for attending and doing the marathon open house. Camilla, thank you. All right. Thank you all. Enjoy your Saturday. And check out, can you guys pop in the webinar page? Because we'll record this. But as we go through, we've recorded a number of webinars, and our future webinars will be recorded, and we'll add that information there. But if you want to do that, and then we'll hop off. Oh, perfect. Genevieve, how do you do things? Oh, and Mel, don't forget Fast Fuzz. Mel's the grounding voice of admissions. Thank you. All right. Bring that pig back in the house. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks, Jaden. I'm just saying thanks as fast as I'm Caleb. Attendees, all the ones on here, because I want to make sure Alexis, Alice, Assad, Connie, Dan, David, Gage, Heart, Lucy, really, Marbell, Michael. I'm going Michelle. I'm just going Kelsey. I hope you consider VLS. All right. Thank you so much. Take good care. Bye, everyone.